In the high-stakes arena of American politics, few rivalries have been as intense and enduring as that between Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi. From the contentious impeachment proceedings to fiery public exchanges, their confrontations have often dominated headlines. However, recent developments suggest that Trump may have executed a masterstroke, catching Pelosi off guard and altering the political landscape. A pivotal moment in this unfolding drama centers around Pelosi's private concerns regarding President Joe Biden's cognitive abilities. According to Chris Whipple's book, Uncharted: How Trump Beat Biden, Harris, and the Odds in the Wildest Campaign in History, Pelosi was startled by Biden's apparent cognitive decline as early as May 2024. Despite these concerns, she publicly dismissed a Wall Street Journal report highlighting similar issues, labeling it a hit piece. This dichotomy between her private apprehensions and public statements would later become a point of contention. New York Post? +1. Fox News? +1. As the 2024 presidential campaign progressed, Pelosi reportedly attempted to dissuade Biden from participating in debates against Trump. In Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes, it's revealed that Pelosi believed debating Trump would diminish the dignity of the presidency and potentially expose Biden's vulnerabilities. Despite her efforts, Biden proceeded with the debates, and his underwhelming performance intensified discussions about his fitness for office. New York Post? Trump, ever the strategist, capitalized on these developments. By allowing the Democratic Party to grapple with internal discord and public skepticism, he positioned himself as a stable alternative. Pelosi's internal conflicts and public missteps inadvertently played into Trump's narrative, portraying the Democrats as disorganized and out of touch. The culmination of these events saw Biden withdrawing from the race, with Vice President Kamala Harris stepping in as the Democratic nominee. However, the damage was done. The party's internal struggles and perceived lack of transparency had eroded public trust, paving the way for Trump's return to the presidency. New York Post? In retrospect, Trump's decision to remain patient and allow the Democratic Party's internal issues to surface proved to be a calculated and effective strategy. By refraining from direct confrontation and instead focusing on his campaign, he managed to exploit the vulnerabilities within his opposition, leading to a significant political victory. While President Trump quietly maneuvered through the 2024 election cycle, Nancy Pelosi found herself in an increasingly untenable position. The former speaker, long viewed as a master tactician within the Democratic Party, faced mounting tension between her party loyalty and her private alarm over Joe Biden's mental acuity. The contrast between her public posture and behind-the-scenes panic set the stage for one of the most stunning political traps in modern history. According to multiple sources, including Chris Whipple's insider account in Uncharted, Pelosi began sounding the alarm behind closed doors as early as spring 2024. She was reportedly deeply unsettled after a private one-on-one with President Biden where, according to the book, he seemed confused, forgot dates, and repeated himself several times. Pelosi, who had weathered countless crises during her tenure as Speaker, knew that Biden's cognitive fitness would become a liability in the heat of a brutal campaign against Donald Trump. Still, publicly, Pelosi played the loyal soldier. When the Wall Street Journal published its May 2024 report quoting insiders concerned about Biden's memory lapses and focus issues, Pelosi swiftly denounced it. "This is a hit piece. The president is sharp and the American people see that," she told MSNBC. But privately, according to Fight authors Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes, she was lobbying Biden's inner circle to prevent him from debating Trump. She wasn't alone. Former President Obama, according to Fight, was also uneasy about Biden's stamina and warned aides to limit unscripted events. But Pelosi's voice carried unique weight. She had guided the party through 2 impeachments of Trump and had an unparalleled understanding of the stakes. Her plea was simple: Biden should step aside with dignity and allow a younger candidate to take the reins. Yet Biden, buoyed by close advisors and wary of appearing weak, pressed on. The decision to debate Trump would later be called the tipping point by Democratic strategist James Carville. Biden's halting, meandering performance in the June debates sent shockwaves through the party. Polls shifted almost overnight, with independents fleeing Biden in large numbers. Even reliable blue districts reported slippage. Trump, meanwhile, remained relatively quiet about Pelosi's contradictions until the moment was right. At a rally in Arizona in early July, Trump delivered the blow. "Crazy Nancy knew Joe wasn't up for the job. She begged him not to debate me. But instead of telling the truth, she lied to you. To the American people. She covered for him while the country suffered. The media jumped. Suddenly, reporters began revisiting Pelosi's earlier interviews. Clips from CNN and MSNBC were juxtaposed with recent leaks from Democratic insiders. The narrative began to shift. Was Pelosi complicit in deceiving the American people? Republicans in the House quickly capitalized. They filed a resolution demanding Pelosi testify before a congressional committee investigating the administration's election misrepresentation. While the resolution was mostly symbolic, it poured fuel on the fire. GOP campaign ads aired in swing states accusing Pelosi of hiding Biden's decline for political power. Even moderate Democrats grew uncomfortable. "We should have had a serious conversation about leadership succession last year," said Representative Abigail Spanberger, Democrat, Virginia. The tension turned the spotlight on the Democratic leadership's inability or unwillingness to act on internal concerns. By August, as Biden bowed out and Kamala Harris was formally nominated, the damage was irreversible. Trump's approval ratings climbed not only among Republicans but also with independent voters who felt they'd been gaslit by Democratic leadership. Trump, now confident, framed the entire episode as proof of his opponent's duplicity. "They didn't just lie about Biden's health," he declared in a campaign ad. "They lied about everything. Inflation, crime, the border. And Pelosi? She was right there helping them do it." In political warfare, timing is everything. Trump's genius lay not in attacking Pelosi early but in waiting until her credibility had been stretched thin, then striking decisively. As the controversy surrounding Pelosi's role in covering up President Biden's cognitive decline gained traction, another key element began to shift in Trump's favor: the media. For years, mainstream outlets had largely viewed Trump with suspicion and scrutiny, often acting as a firewall against his political rise. But this time, the dynamics were different. Pelosi's internal contradictions were impossible to ignore, and the press, cornered by leaked memos, conflicting interviews, and staffer testimonies, was forced to pivot. One of the first major cracks came when the New York Times published a retrospective analysis titled, "Who Knew What and When?" The report cited a half-dozen high-ranking Democratic aides who confirmed that Pelosi had raised concerns about Biden's stamina as early as the 2022 midterms. One senior staffer said Pelosi had warned the Democratic caucus in a private meeting, "We may need a contingency plan." Yet, when confronted with these accounts during an on-air interview with CNN's Jake Tapper, Pelosi stuck to her guns. "The president was capable when we needed him. Any speculation otherwise was just that, speculation." But viewers weren't buying it. A Snap CNN poll after the segment showed that 61% of respondents believed Pelosi had been intentionally misleading regarding Biden's health. Meanwhile, Trump's campaign doubled down. They launched a website titled PelosiLeaks.org, which curated video clips, media contradictions, and even DNC email leaks that hinted at internal panic. A particularly viral video stitched together Pelosi's May 2024 dismissal of the Wall Street Journal article with anonymous staff recordings from the same week in which she allegedly warned about the risk of Trump steamrolling a tired Biden. The Trump campaign wasn't just focused on scoring political points, they were working to destroy Pelosi's institutional reputation. For decades, she had been the Democratic Party's Iron Lady, feared, admired, and deeply respected even by her critics. But now, Trump had transformed her into a symbol of Democratic deceit. "This is not just about Joe Biden," Trump said at a massive rally in Michigan. "This is about the system. The swamp." Pelosi stood on that platform and told you everything was fine, while her own party begged her to speak the truth. But she didn't. Because power mattered more. The message resonated. Independents, especially older voters, were deeply uncomfortable with the idea that America had been led by a cognitively compromised president and that party leaders may have intentionally hid it. Focus group panels in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin showed a sharp swing in perception. "Pelosi lost all my trust," said one retired teacher in Scranton. "If they'll lie about this, what else will they lie about?" Even left-leaning commentators began to break ranks. MSNBC's Joe Scarborough admitted on air, "We've been tiptoeing around this for months, and the voters know it. That's why this story has legs. It confirms what they suspected all along." The snowball effect was relentless. Satirical shows like Saturday Night Live mocked Pelosi's shifting statements, and YouTube channels across the political spectrum exploded with reaction videos dissecting her every word. The phrase "Pelosi panic" began trending on X, formerly Twitter, becoming a meme for backtracking politicians. Trump's timing had been pitch perfect. By waiting until internal Democratic discontent leaked into public view, he allowed the media to turn on Pelosi organically. His campaign simply gave them a spotlight and a slogan: they lied. We paid the price. But what truly sealed the narrative wasn't just the chaos within the Democratic Party. It was the growing realization that Trump, who had been mocked, impeached, and vilified, had sat back, watched it all unfold, and then pulled the lever at the exact right moment. He didn't just trap Pelosi. He made her the face of everything Americans were angry about. As the Democratic National Convention neared in late August 2024, the spotlight began to shift to Vice President Kamala Harris. With Biden officially stepping aside, the party scrambled to project unity and strength. Harris, now the presumptive nominee, made urgent efforts to consolidate support and repair the cracks in the Democratic wall. But Trump's trap had already ensnared more than just Pelosi. It had cast a long shadow over the party's credibility. The decision to back Harris wasn't without tension. According to Politico, key donors had privately expressed doubts about Harris's ability to take on Trump head-to-head. Kamala has baggage, said one DNC insider. But after Biden's collapse and Pelosi's silence, we didn't have a clean slate anywhere. At the convention, Harris delivered a powerful speech seeking to pivot from the Biden years and assert herself as a fresh leader for the future. We acknowledge where we went wrong, she told a roaring crowd in Chicago. And we promise transparency, honesty, and energy moving forward. The message was carefully crafted, and yet it was clear to political observers that the damage was deep. Trump's campaign was quick to seize on it. Kamala is running from her record, Trump said during a rally in North Carolina. But she was there every step of the way. Standing next to Joe. Nodding. Smiling. And who helped cover it all up? Pelosi. That's when Trump made his most devastating rhetorical move yet. He began tying Harris and Pelosi together in a new campaign theme, the partnership of deceit. Ads started airing nationwide, blending Harris's quotes about Biden's mental sharpness with Pelosi's now controversial denials. One particularly effective spot showed clips of both women defending Biden in June, just weeks before the debate disaster, followed by headlines detailing their private worries. The public response was immediate. According to a CBS News/YouGov poll, 68% of voters believed Democratic leadership had misled the public about Biden's capacity to govern. Among independents, that number jumped to 74%. Trump's campaign added further fuel by releasing excerpts from a whistleblower complaint from within the DNC. The document, obtained and authenticated by The Federalist, suggested that internal polling about Biden's mental sharpness had been intentionally buried in late 2023 to avoid donor panic. It also detailed how both Pelosi and Harris were briefed on voter concerns in early 2024, months before the debate fiasco. Facing the storm, Pelosi tried to retreat from the spotlight. She canceled interviews and skipped two major fundraising events. But the damage had already spread beyond her control. Her once ironclad status as the grand strategist of the Democrats had crumbled under Trump's relentless campaign of exposure and narrative control. Meanwhile, Harris struggled to hold the party together. While she still maintained strong support from younger voters and progressives, moderates were shaken. Trump's framing, linking Harris to Pelosi and Biden, was working. In battleground states like Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia, Harris's poll numbers slipped below Trump's for the first time. Political analyst Nate Silver wrote on X. Trump didn't just win the debate. He won the narrative war. Pelosi's miscalculation was the key. She protected Biden instead of telling the truth. That handed Trump the moral high ground, a rare thing in this polarized environment. It was a stunning reversal. For years, Trump had battled accusations of dishonesty, recklessness, and lack of presidential decorum. But now, amid a crumbling Democratic image, he was successfully recasting himself as the only one who told the truth, even if that truth was political ammunition he'd held in reserve for maximum damage. And Nancy Pelosi, a titan of political maneuvering, had become his most unexpected pawn. As fall arrived and the 2024 election campaign entered its final stretch, the aftershocks of Nancy Pelosi's political miscalculation continued to ripple through Washington. What had begun as a series of carefully managed internal concerns about President Biden's health had exploded into a full-blown credibility crisis for the Democratic Party, and it was Pelosi, not Biden, who was bearing the brunt. Behind closed doors, Democrats were furious. Several members of Congress, particularly those in swing districts, began distancing themselves from the Speaker Emerita. A few even spoke anonymously to Axios, describing her as tone-deaf and too focused on control to see the storm coming. One representative from the Midwest lamented, "We trusted her instincts, and she trapped us in a situation that empowered Trump beyond belief." The real cost was being felt in public sentiment. What had been expected to be a tight race between Trump and whichever Democrat replaced Biden was now turning into a momentum-fueled sprint for the former president. By early October, Trump had taken the lead in nearly every key battleground state, and his approval ratings, especially among independents, had risen to their highest levels since early 2017. But perhaps most damning of all for Pelosi was the shift in how the media and historians began to assess her legacy. For decades, Pelosi had been hailed as one of the most effective speakers in American history. She had passed landmark legislation, held her party together during turbulent times, and was widely regarded as a master strategist. But now her name was synonymous with institutional cover-up. The Washington Post ran an editorial titled "A Master of Power Undone by Silence," which concluded, "Pelosi's decision to conceal concerns about the president's fitness may have been rooted in loyalty and political calculation, but the result was a catastrophic misread of the public mood." Her silence became the spark that reignited Donald Trump's rise. Across the aisle, Trump's team capitalized on this reevaluation. In speech after speech, he framed himself as the outsider who had once again outmaneuvered the Washington elite. At a rally in Pennsylvania, Trump declared, "They laughed when I said something was wrong. They mocked me. They called it conspiracy. But guess what? I told the truth. And Nancy Pelosi? She covered it up. She trapped herself, and she trapped all of them. The swamp just exposed itself." It wasn't just rhetoric. Trump's campaign released a book titled The Pelosi Plot, a rapid-fire publication that chronicled the sequence of internal Democratic meetings, Biden's declining public performances, and the coordinated effort to keep the truth from the American people. It became a bestseller on Amazon within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris tried desperately to steer the conversation away from Pelosi and toward the issues. She focused her campaign on student loan relief, climate change, and reproductive rights. But the narrative was no longer in her hands. Trump, bolstered by Pelosi's fumble, had seized the frame of the election. For every initiative Harris proposed, Trump countered with a question: if they lied about the president's health, how can you trust them on anything else? And voters were listening. A late October Gallup poll found that 72% of respondents believed Pelosi should have been transparent about Biden's mental health, and more than 60% said the issue was directly impacting how they planned to vote. As Election Day neared, it was clear that the trap Trump had laid months earlier had worked. With calculated precision, he had used Pelosi's own political instincts against her, allowing her to delay, deny, and ultimately doom her party's credibility. In an ironic twist, it wasn't Trump's boldness or unpredictability that delivered him this moment, it was his patience. He let Pelosi make the first move, waited for the cracks to show, and then pulled the pin on the grenade she herself had primed. And in doing so, he didn't just trap Nancy Pelosi. He trapped an entire political machine. He turned their strongest players into his greatest assets. And he reminded America, in the high-stakes chessboard of politics, Donald Trump was still playing for checkmate.